storm.
Savage Nation. We're all riding the storm today.
Into this house we're born.
We're going to talk about suicide, the death of a nation, the death of a comedian. It's interesting to me that as the American experience has been crucified under Obama, the media had very little to say, while the death of a single comedian has literally engulfed the entire media. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Yeah, I met him on dog walks many times. We're both dog lovers. His dog Lenny and my dog Teddy knew each other quite well, by the way. In fact, each day Teddy would mark Lenny's hedges, and each day Lenny would mark Teddy's hedges. And we met on these dog walks, and we would talk. We never talked politics because we were on the opposite ends of the political spectrum. He was a member in good standing of the liberal Rat Pack. But he was a nice guy. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he was a nice guy, and he kept telling me for a year, he said, you know, you got to meet Mort Sahl. You got to meet Mort Sahl. Mort Sahl wants to meet you. Because he heard that I liked Mort Sahl. I said, well, Mort Sahl was really the godfather of talk radio, in that when he went on stage in the 50s with that newspaper wearing a sweater, and I was a kid, I said, who is this guy? What kind of comedy is this? Stream of consciousness. Anyway, they were good friends, Robin Williams and Mort Sahl, and he kept saying, Mort Sahl wants to meet you, blah, blah, blah. So he introduced us, and I took Mort Sahl to dinner up to the chalet. And we had a nice night. Mort was over 90. He had suffered a stroke. He was a very interesting man. It was an interesting thing for me because I'd first seen him so long before that. But getting back to Robin Williams, I can't say I knew him. The fact of the matter is, we never talked politics. We talked dogs. And he was a funny guy, genuinely funny. He was able to put his politics aside. I was able to put my politics aside. And we met around the hedge where the dogs both... He said it was, what do you call the hedge? He called my hedge the message board for dogs in the neighborhood. But let's stop turning him into a saint. Can I tell you what I really think about this? It's about the most outrageously aggressive act you can commit against your family. That's right, you heard me. I mean, a lot of people suffer depression. I've told you I've suffered it most of my life. Just deal with it like a man. What is this nation of ours? Overfed, oversexed, overmoneyed, and we're all walking around boo-hoo. Why don't you go look at what's going on in Lebanon right now, or, excuse me, in Ukraine. Take a look at what's going on in Gaza. Take a look at what's going on in Africa, and you're sitting and crying over what? Someone doesn't love you? You're not famous enough? You don't have enough this, you don't have enough that? What a country we live in. So it leads me to this question. Has anyone in your immediate family ever committed suicide, and what effects did it have on you or others? It's an act of selfishness, by the way, and it's banned by all three of the principal world's religions. You wouldn't know that given the liberal brainwashing on assisted suicide. You would think suicide is as normal as choice. The same people have told you that abortion is as normal as having a baby are telling you that, hey, you know, life's not working out, just off yourself. Yeah, just end your life. It's yours to end. Don't think about what it might do to your kids. Don't think about what it might do to your wife finding you stiff on a belt. No, don't think about that. Just think only about you and your pain. So anyway, what is the Jewish, what is the Christian, and what is the Islamic view on suicide? What about Hinduism and Buddhism? I have the answers for you. And you're going to be shocked to learn that in Islam, as with other Abrahamic religions, suicide is one of the greatest sins and utterly detrimental to one's spiritual journey. And listen to this. It's very important you hear this because you may learn something that you can help one of your Muslim friends with. A verse in the Quran says, and do not kill yourselves. Surely God is most merciful to you. So really, since suicide is forbidden, then what about suicide bombing? Oh, so the jihadis are violating Islam. Did you hear that? So jihadis are not Muslim. Who are they? Well, they're violating their own religion. Most Muslim scholars and clerics consider suicide forbidden, and they include suicide bombing as being equally forbidden. Tell that to the morons who are being told that they're going to go to heaven. They're going to go to the other place, by the way. Yeah, that's in the religion of Islam. The prophet said, he who commits suicide by throttling shall keep on throttling himself in the hellfire forever, and he who commits suicide by stabbing himself shall keep on stabbing himself in the hellfire. What does that have to do with he who blows other people up? I guess he'll be blown up forever. We'll talk about the Jewish view of suicide. It's similar because the Jewish view was very much that which the Christians and the Muslim folks picked up on. Jewish law was the origin of most of Christian theology on suicide, as most of what Islamic theology was on suicide comes from the Jewish theology on it. It's not your body, in other words. You don't own it. It's not your property. Has anyone in your immediate family committed suicide? What effects on you and others? An act of suicide. But why did Robin Williams commit suicide? I don't really know. I will tell you that there are many stories circulating right now about the fact that he was very unhappy that his new comedy series was not picked up by CBS. He was unhappy that he had to do these repeats of the old movies. He felt it demeaned him, that it wasn't, he wasn't, in other words, getting the acclaim he once had, and he felt unloved, in plain English. You have to understand something. I'm in the performing arts, whether you know it or not. You think I'm your brother or your father or your mother or your sister. In a way, that's fine. Talk show hosts fulfill that role. But at the end of the day, those of us who go out on the air every day are performers. We, too, are looking for love, whether you know it or not. And often we find hate. 30 books later, 20 years later, and I'm still hated by the liberal establishment that is lionizing this poor soul who committed suicide the other night. What was he looking for? He was looking for fame. He wanted more love. What is fame? Fame is love. Love is fame. Fame doesn't fulfill you. It warms you a bit, but that warmth is temporary, said who? Marilyn Monroe. She said fame doesn't fulfill you. It warms you a bit, but that warmth is temporary. And that's the warmth that people find in alcohol. That's the warmth that people find in cocaine. That's the warmth that people find in other drugs. They're looking for warmth, right? Or not? What do you think? I mean, that's pretty much what's going on here. Listen to what Robin Williams himself had to say about it. It was during an interview, and he said on location in Alaska in 2003, he started drinking again. And he says this, he says, I was in a small town where it's not the edge of the world, but you can see it from there. And then I thought drinking, I just thought, hey, maybe drinking will help. Because I felt alone and afraid. It was that thing of working so much and going, maybe that will help. What did it feel like when he had his first drink? He said, you feel warm and kind of wonderful. And then the next thing you know, it's a problem and you're isolated. Well, that's his words. So we all know he had, problems, as many of us do. Cocaine, alcohol, whatever it is. He said he didn't take up cocaine again because, quote, I knew that would kill me. He said, I'd have thought it would be a case of in for a penny, in for a gram, said the interviewer. He said, no, cocaine, paranoid and impotent, what fun. There was no bit of me thinking, oh, let's go back to that. Unless conversations until midnight, waking up at dawn feeling like a vampire in a day pass, no. So he was a multiply addicted personality who couldn't cope anymore. And you have to have compassion for him. As I went to sleep last night, I thought about what I would say today on the show. And I said, I knew him through with his dog, Lenny, and my dog, Teddy. In fact, I said to Teddy, don't worry, Lenny's daddy's dead. What does Teddy know? I said, Dad, Lenny's okay, though. He doesn't know what I'm talking about, but we do these things with our dogs. We have these imaginary conversations with dogs. We think they understand this. They don't really. They just get the emotional vibe. I'd like to believe Teddy looked up and said, it's okay, Dad. But he didn't. He just laid there and let me rub his stomach. But I hope Lenny's okay, truthfully. I'm sure Lenny will be fine. A lot of people loved him. But we're going to talk today about these topics, and we have some remarkable stuff, tapes of Robin Williams that you've not heard, because during the lionization of Robin on the networks, you're only hearing the funny, bright stuff. You're not hearing some of the dark stuff he did about Rush Limbaugh and conservatives. You say, well, why are you playing it? Why not? What do I care? What do I care what people think of me? What am I in business for? For love? Oh, yeah, right. That's worked out real well. 30 books and 20 years in radio. That worked out real well. The progressive, liberal establishment really loves those on the other side of the aisle, don't they? If they could, they would put us into a boxcar and send us to a death camp. if they had the power to do so. Maybe they can with a pen and a stool. We don't know yet. But here I am. I mean, I don't know the guy's politics. I know he was a liberal and a member of the liberal establishment from Hollywood, which is why, as I say to you, if the Pope had died, there'd be less coverage than there is for the death of this nice guy, this comedian, who I knew through the walks of our dogs. But I think you need to listen to me when I say to you it's the ultimate act of selfishness. Don't lose that in anything that I say today. All I hear, oh, depression this, oh, depression that, Dr. Schmendrick, Dr. Blowhard. How about saying for once that it's an act of selfishness to commit your suicide? Maybe it'd stop the next guy from hanging himself instead of holding his hand and telling him, oh, poor baby. Poor baby, you're suffering because no one loves you. Poor baby, you're suffering because you don't make as much money as your neighborhood. Your shoes aren't as shiny, your wife's not as pretty, and your car is more dull. What a country we live in. Everyone's walking around feeling sorry for themselves. Everyone's about to commit suicide because their life is no good. Well, take a look at what happened to the people in the Middle East because your Islamic buddies just took 500 of them, the Yazidis, and buried them alive. Tell me what that would do to your heart. I'll be right back on the Savage Nation.